but
I was about to ask for the meeting to be recorded. You've just covered a bunch of things that I wasn't paying attention at the beginning, and it sounds really interesting.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. This is why.
Can someone summarize it in a couple sentences for the record?
Would you mind? Yeah, great. Thanks, John.
Yeah, I'll try. In summary, there's a bill tomorrow at 1:30, sponsored by Representatives Parenti and Titone, that would establish a task force to address HOA issues and a separate task force for Metro District issues, which we're supporting with amendments. When I say we, the Coloradans for Metro District Reform. Yesterday, we were unable to testify on a bill, a very important bill, that was proposed by the industry that does two things. One is it creates a short list of disclosures, arguably from their standpoint to enhance transparency. Our reaction is there's nothing new, nothing that isn't already being done, and it creates a false presentation that actual reform is taking place. The second thing that bill does or did is contain what I call a Trojan horse that doesn't have anything to do with disclosure, but what it does is create a safe harbor, legitimizes, codifies one of the abuses, and that is developers issuing debt to themselves where they get paid all of the principal and interest rates that are higher than marketplace. And the safe harbor, the way that this gets protected through the legislation, is through the creation of a municipal advisor approval process. And as we were saying, the municipal advisors are simply bought and paid for by the developer and don't live up to the suggestion in the legislation that they're somehow independent and neutral persons. So at any rate, we'll be opposing it when it goes to the House, and as Farah said, we may try to oppose it on the floor, but that's very hard to do.
and there are three other there are a total of 4 sponsors. So I don't know the other people who are sponsoring it all. So one of them might be amenable to amendments.
What's the number of the bill?
Let me restate that. Actually, I think, Jeff, you said you you listened to the whole testimony. I believe that Senator Gonzalez tried to amend on several occasions and failed in every time. So she was the only no vote on the committee.
What's the number of the bill?
110.
Senate Bill 110. It's in the chat box, Neil.
Oh, fabulous.
A link. Also in the chat is a link to all elections and voting bills that our Legislative Action Committee is following. Andrea, Maud, Jeff, anybody else Thalia, anybody else who's on the LAC, do you want to talk about any of the bills there that haven't already been talked about?
I think Celeste was going to talk about
great.
a few.
I am ready to talk about them.
Yay.
So I'm only going to talk about active bills. I'm not going to talk about any of the PI bills. We can talk about those if you want to, but since they're dead, I thought I wouldn't do that. The first one is Senate Bill 101. And this would upend the way that most candidates get on the ballot. It's what we call ballot access. The League is opposed to this bill because it requires every candidate to collect signatures. Right now, some can go through a party meeting process, an assembly. Collecting signatures is time consuming, it's potentially costly, it favors wealthier, well-connected candidates. Many potential candidates would probably just give up, saying that it's too hard to run for office. And if there are so many uncontested races on the ballot, that would probably depress voter turnout. So we're opposed to that one. Any questions on that? I think I'm supposed to go very fast, so I'm going to move on then. The next one is House Bill 1149. It would set up special rules for conduct of elections in less populous counties. The county clerks in these counties have complained about having to keep branch vote centers open for extended periods of time, but yet they get minimal foot traffic. And the league is monitoring this bill at the moment. Any questions on 1149?
It's not on, I'm not seeing it on the elections sheet unless I'm missing.
If we're not officially monitoring it, we are at least watching it. So,
Oh, because you can, you know how you can just send an email to Mac and say, we want to monitor this bill.
Jerry Cummins, who's a former city clerk, wanted to make sure we were looking at it. I don't think we're officially monitoring it, maybe. So maybe I should change that statement.
Celeste, I did just throw it in the profile. If that's not what you all want me to do, I can remove it, but
It's fine to keep it in there. Yeah, thanks. Another
Sorry,
bill
in the
that's,
profile?
it's a list.
Oh, okay. As in pro, as in favor?
No, profile. A
no,
list. of
it's a bill
profiles.
tracking term that the LAC uses.
And is it something that's just for LAC or for?
No, you can access it on the LWVCO site. If you go to the Legislative Action Report page, we've got links to the Master Bill Tracker where you'll see all the legislation that we've taken a position on. So you won't see a lot of monitor legislation in that specific one. But if you go to the Election and Voting tab, you'll see everything that we put in the profile, we call it.
Yeah.
Great.
So,
Thank
so Andrea just added this bill to the elections and voting group's list of bills that they're monitoring. And so probably if I refresh my page and Club Express doesn't, yeah, there it is. Doesn't throw me out. 1149 showed up. So great work, Andrea, real time.
Okay. Moving on to the next one in numerical order, it's HB 23-1170. It would set up a distributed ledger system for voting. You may have heard of distributed ledgers because they're used with cryptocurrency. A distributed ledger is a database that's publicly available. It's used to verify transactions of cryptocurrency in particular. We're studying the bill at the moment. I want to personally look at loss of ballot anonymity, like can they track the ballot back to the person who cast it? And also I'm worried about reliance on electronic balloting, but I haven't been able to look at it as much as I'd like to. And I'm sure Neil is also going to be interested in this bill.
Yeah, I've looked at it and I think the transparency issues are in principle are a good idea, but it wants to be implemented very soon. And the anonymity issues are really daunting, to say nothing of no funding, and it doesn't work with our current equipment and so on. So, I think the idea of finding ways to be more transparent is good, but I don't think this is likely to pass or a good thing to pass.
Okay, moving on to the next one. This one I have a strong interest in. It's House Bill 1180. It does two things. One, it requires any county with more than 70,000 people, that's about 10 counties, to have 5 county commissioners. Right now, you have the option of having 3 or 5. That's part one. Part two, it would also change the way that the commissioners are elected. It would force at least 3 of the commissioners to be elected by district. You could elect all 4 of them or all 5 of them by district. And the concern with the voting methods group is that single member districts do not allow for proportional representation. This bill is scheduled for a committee hearing on March 2nd. I've been in touch with the bill sponsors, in particular, one of the backup bill sponsors. And I worked on a couple bills last year and the year before. And so that's an ongoing discussion. I'm in the process of writing up a report for the elections team to consider, with a recommendation that we would then give to the LAC to vote on. And then I have one more bill. House Bill 1185 would make some changes to vacancy elections for both partisan and nonpartisan elections, and would make changes to recall elections in municipalities. Also studying this bill, stay tuned. It's scheduled for a committee hearing on Monday, February 27th. And that's my report.
And elections and voting group does not, that's 1185?
1185, yeah. We have
Yeah.
not written up a report on it yet.
Clock is,
But-
oh, no, you've got
but-
time. You've got almost 2 weeks, so.
Yeah, and it seems mostly focused on municipalities. So there's some background information I'd like to find out more about that, so. That's
Thank you,
it.
thank you, Celeste.
Gary, you put in the chat, you're asking about 1180. We only have positions on one active bill right now. That's SB Senate Bill 101. We are opposed to the bill. That's the one that's going to require everybody to get on the ballot by collecting signatures. Can you imagine the bombarding you would get by candidates asking for your signature? Every single candidate had to petition onto the ballot.
And you also have an amendment stance on Senate Bill 21, the name ordering on the primary ballot.
That bill was PI'd.
Oh, that was PI'd, sorry.
Yes.
I got a email the other day asking me to support 1115. So does League of Women Voters, that's the one repealing the prohibition on rent control. So
We do
is that
support that.
does that indicate a position by the League of Women Voters?
If
We
you
do
got
support that, yes.
Yes, we do.
Okay,
We what?
It's not an elections bill, but
no.
yeah, but we do have a position on it.
Yeah, we
So
have a position.
on 1180, you don't have a position on yet?
Correct.
Correct.
We're monitoring it right now, but that may change soon. I think Celeste is in the process of coordinating with the team on that for a vote to LAC, the Legislative Action Committee. And if you all refer back to the Legislative Action Report page on the State League website, it does update frequently. So you should be, we try and, as soon as we've got a definitive position, we try and report with both the Secretary of State and on the bill list that you'll see on that page. So if you check that frequently, you should have a pretty up-to-date view of what we currently have a position on.
Yeah. Anybody know of bills in the hopper that have not yet dropped?
Maud, what do you know about the presidential primary bill?
Probably no more than you do.
Okay.
I mean, it was, yeah, probably less than you do. What I've heard in the alternative voting methods meeting. So
If I'm remembering correctly, Maud, Celeste, I think the last we had heard that there was really concern over the timing of the implementation. So it didn't really sound like it had the legislative support necessary to gain much traction this year. But that may not be totally up to date.
So to let everybody know what's going on, RCV for Colorado is interested in using RCV in presidential primaries to determine delegates going to the national convention. And they had 2 sponsors lined up for a bill, 1 Senate, 1 House. The House representative did not get reelected. I know that Chris Kennedy, who's been involved with lots of election bills, had concerns about it. And but America Votes, I think the Secretary of State also had concerns about it. America Votes, not America Votes, Amber McReynolds from Vote at Home was very positive about the bill and was trying to convince people that it would work. And that's as much as I know.
And RCV is ranked choice voting.
Thanks, Maud. Yes.
Who's the sponsor that you said there was one that was lined up?
Jeff Bridges in the Senate.
But I don't know that there's even an official draft on this. Maud, Celeste, have you heard differently?
RCV for Colorado is being keeping their cards close to their chest on this one, as far as I know.
When I had last inquired about it, and this has probably been a month or more at this point, there was not a draft, and I've not seen or heard anything to the contrary since then.
Any other election bills that might be in the wings? Or are we just glad that this is a relatively slow session for elections and voting?
This doesn't sound so slow to me, but compared to Arizona, I guess we're getting off really late.
Compared
Maud?
to, yeah,
You said I was only allowed to talk 15 to 20 seconds on each one, and I could have talked the whole hour about them, but
you could, well, you can, would people like to hear more about some of these bills, or was the elevator speech enough?
Since our speaker hasn't yet arrived.
I do see that the House has adjourned, so hopefully we'll see an appearance soon.
Maud, since I'm from a county that supports getting 5 commissioners, and I live in a county that needs 5 commissioners, I think that that's something that we really need to consider supporting. And I don't know how we best
Christina,
get there.
I think I know that Boulder County League has a position supporting 5 commissioners also. And that's not the problematic part of the bill. The problematic part of the bill is that they're changing the way that you would elect commissioners to have more from single districts, or take away the at-large options, as many of the at-large options as are currently available. And it also, like, if you're saying, oh, we're going to have single winner districts, then you can't have proportional representation. And the Boulder County League has a position saying, until we get proportional representation, we'll take 3 districts and 2 at large. But, you know, I'm trying to talk to them about proportional representation.
Yeah.
I get it, but I need the 5 commissioners so badly that, I think we would probably go, okay, fine, take the 3-2 versus, not getting the 5 commissioners.
Yeah, I don't think we would oppose this. I think we would amend it if anything. But if the bill is so convoluted. Oh, and there's another part that's really terrible about petition signatures. So I worked on House Bill 19-1278, which cut down the number of petition signatures that you needed for county offices. It used to be 20%. and no absolute value, just 20% of the people in the previous primary. And then we changed our primary system so that unaffiliateds could vote in the primary. Well, if unaffiliates can vote in the primary, suddenly you're going from needing 4,000 signatures to get on the ballot to needing 15,000 signatures to get on the ballot, which is impossible to do. Like, we had somebody trying to get the 4,000 signatures, they couldn't get the 4,000. And they're not going to be able to get the 15,000. So that's a big problem that needs to be fixed, because House Bill 19-1278 evidently changed the requirements for getting on a regular ballot, but not when you're going from a county that has 3 commissioners to 5 commissioners. You have to have a special election to add those 2 new commissioners, and there's no way a minor party, there's no way an unaffiliated candidate could get on the ballot. And there's no way you'd have much of a, well, anyway, it's going to cut down on competitiveness, which the league doesn't want.
Yeah, those are huge issues. So I appreciate you trying to prevent that.
There are going to be a lot of libertarians discussing this bill, testifying on this bill on tomorrow, and maybe other minor parties and unaffiliated voters. Basically, the rules that changed in House Bill 1278, I was in favor of the major party signature requirements, but there was also a section that made the minor party signature requirements align with the major parties. And since then, nobody who's unaffiliated has gotten on a ballot at the state level. So there are a lot of people who are very unhappy. The longtime editor of Ballot Access News, his name is Richard Winger. He will probably testify on this bill. He sent to me the number of the bill that made for good ballot access for minor party candidates. And it was my former state senator, Ron Tupas, who I had lunch with. I had coffee with last month. So I let him know that the bill's up too. One more thing about the bill is that the Senate sponsor is Barbara Kirkmeyer, who had a close 8th congressional district race with a third-party libertarian candidate who may have made the difference in who won that. And Barbara Kirkmeyer lost to Yadira Caraveo. I'm guessing somebody, it's not going to be the league, is going to say something about, oh, you're just carrying this bill because you have sour grapes and you don't want third parties to have any say in elections. But
This is 1180, Celeste?
1180, yeah.
Okay. And state league is still just monitoring?
Yes, it's
Okay.
it's not actually. Oh no, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Senate Bill 101 is the one that the libertarians are all upset about, and that's tomorrow in committee. Some of these have some overlap.
This is the candidate ballot access bill 101.
Right.
Okay.
But I brought up candidate ballot access for 1180 because the bill talks about going from 3 county commissioners to 5, and the ballot access for that election when you have your 2 new county commissioners is prohibitive. It doesn't, you need to either be nominated by your party or you need to be you need to get 20% of the signatures. So it's 20% of the voters to sign. It's not good ballot access for that particular little part.
That's
The details.
in 1180 you're talking about.
1180, it's ballot
Right.
access only for going from 3 county commissioners to 5. Yeah.
Okay.
20% an outrageous amount anyway.
Yeah.
Is that dependent on population numbers too?
It used to be just 20%, and then that 2019 bill changed it to the lesser of 10% or 1,000 signatures. And there was actually an effort by, I heard Kent Theory, who's got lots of money, to do this petition thing. The same thing Senate Bill 101 is doing. That was like 2020 or so. He had a citizens initiative that he wanted on the ballot, and I testified against it because in Rio Blanco, if you had to get even 10%, like the new amount, even if you had to get 10%, then there weren't enough Democrats for a Democrat to get on the ballot. Senate Bill 101 is changing it a little bit by letting unaffiliated sign a major party ballot also. So that's one good thing that Senate Bill 101 is doing, but requiring everybody to go through the signature collection process, I think, is crazy. The third way to get onto a ballot is by paying a fee. And that's not something we do much here except for presidential candidates in Colorado.
So Christina, it was 1180 county commissioner elections that you're interested in because you need you want 5 commissioners in Jeffco?
Jeffco has long had a policy of supporting 5 commissioners.
I would love to see the bill just take out everything about how you're going to change the election and just go to 5 commissioners. I'd love it. My
Yeah.
county commissioners won't like it. I don't know how the Jeffco county commissioners feel about it, but our league in Boulder County likes it.
And currently, is the only way to go to 5 is to do home rule?
No. The state statute says if you have 70,000 people in your county, you can go to 5. And the people have to approve it, but and you can also go from 5 back down to 3 if you have 70,000 people. But this bill would require every populous county to have 5 county commissioners, unless you're home rule, there are 2 of those, or your city county like Denver and Broomfield.
What is the thinking on this being a state level issue rather than a local issue?
Really?
It's interesting if you read the legislative declaration, because they say, oh, we need to give minorities voices, but single winner districts don't do that. So
Yeah. But I mean, that's very helpful in terms of pushing for a bill that would actually accomplish proportional representation. Tricky.
Agreed. In my latest email to the sponsors, I expanded to include the Senate sponsor and the other backup House sponsor so that they know, like, there's a reference that's incorrect. They talk about 10 ways you can elect county commissioners right now. I think there are only 4. So I'm asking them, what are the other 6 that are mentioned in the bill summary? I don't think they're there. I think the legislative legal staff is probably overworked, and we're not getting the best possible bills out of them right now, at least in terms of elections. When I know more than the bill drafter, I'm a little worried.
And imagine being a legislator trying to vote on all these.
Yes, and imagine what they look like before they get revised by the requester and sent back, been there. Because in Nevada the executive branch can send bills itself. It doesn't have to go through legislators. And
Yikes.
no, things like supplementals, why should it have to go through a legislator or one-shot bills or state agencies can propose bills. Legislators still have to have hearings on them and vote on them. It's not, it goes through the regular process, but the executive branch. So I've seen the drafts. And they don't-
Would people be interested in hearing about the distributed ledgers bill? I haven't read it all, and if Neil wants to talk about it, I'd be interested in. People are often talking about, oh, we pay bills online. Why can't we vote online? And Neil will push back against that, and Maud will too.
Yeah, but I don't see anything in the bill in the distributed ledgers bill that talks about
Okay.
anything other than paper ballots, and it actually talks about
Okay.
paper ballots.
But it
Well,
talks about a token.
Yeah, what it's
And-
talking about is how to more effectively track eligibility to vote and provide evidence that people, did that the vote that they cast got counted, stuff like that. So I haven't looked in detail at how it would work. And there are some, very interesting, fascinating, miraculous ways that you can kind of prove to the world how you voted without, prove to the world that you voted, prove to yourself that you voted the way that you thought you did without being able to prove to anyone else how you voted. So there are ways to do this. That's not what this bill is about, except there might be some aspects of being able to prove that you actually had, like your ballot was included. It's complicated, but this is, as far as I could tell, it was really just about tracking the paper ballots and the paper envelopes and things like that, and voter credit and being more transparent about it. It's just very hard to do that without providing hints that can be used to figure out how people voted.
Neil, this isn't being sponsored by those people that would like to intimidate voters, is it?
It's sponsored by 2 Republicans.
Ron's
The intimidation stuff is, we do not have good ways to actually authenticate voters. I mean, signatures are not working. There's a lawsuit against the Secretary of State. And I've worked with the clerks on how to verify signatures, and people's signatures do not necessarily match what is on the records, and a lot of voters have their votes ignored, rejected, sent for cure, and they don't bother to cure it. So the way that we authenticate is a problem, but and that motivates some people and gives them carte blanche to do things that can certainly be intimidating, and that's a problem. But we need to separate out the goal of making sure that everyone who's eligible to vote can vote, and not people that aren't. So
what is the that bill number with the tokens?
1170.
1170. Okay, that's the one that
It's
distributed
elections.
ledgers. Yeah, I
distributed
don't think it
elections.
makes sense. I think that the things in that realm would be useful, and none of those things have anything to do with intimidating voters.
Good.
So, Neil, if you were in the LAC elections group, would you recommend supporting it?
I sent something to Gaithia. Is she not on the call?
He's not
She
on
is
the call.
taking care, she takes care of her grandson during the day.
Let me find out what I sent her. I actually thought about it more then and knew more
Can you
then.
copy me on that, Neil? Because I can look it up too. But I also want to know, I wonder if we want to talk a little bit more about special districts, because I know that's been a big focus, and I don't want to, I don't know if everybody here attended the special district meeting. And if Jennifer Parenti's going to come, we might want a little introduction. I don't know. Just the thought.
And Phyllis, you keep trying to fall asleep and it concerns me that you're going to fall off your chair and we're going to hear a huge clunk and not be able to go help you. It's wonderful having you here. I just hope that we're not putting you to sleep and making it unsafe for you.
I sent a quick email to Representative Parenti with the link, I hope.
Hope she is able to join. And Christine. Yeah.
Deetra Duncan, I'm so happy you're here, and I wonder if you have looked at the recall and vacancy bill, because it affects municipalities, and you're on city council for Fountain. It's House Bill 1185. And I
No,
should
I
be,
haven't, but when I am going to look at it, so I'm glad that I'm on this call.
I apologize for not being better prepared for this meeting. But yeah, it's definitely one on our radar, and it's scheduled for February 27th in the hearing. And like
Is it in the chat? Is
It
the
is
one that
now.
you have in the chat?
It is
there it
now.
is.
Okay.
And like the special district folks were saying, you can, they can spring a committee hearing on you, but it has to go through 2 committee hearings before it passes. So the second one shouldn't be a surprise. If you
Wait,
need to
Right.
testify.
wait, I thought they could pass things out in the first hearing.
The first hearing in the House and then a second hearing in the Senate. That's what I'm
Oh,
talking about.
okay, in,
Yeah.
Or
in,
vice
in
versa.
two, in
Two
two
chambers.
in
Yeah.
two chambers, yeah.
And I'm sorry I have to leave, but I'll catch you next time.
Thank you, Betty.
Uh-huh.
You were starting to ask me a question a minute ago.
There is a rumor, a vicious rumor about you and FAIR that you might be interested in joining the State Legislative Action Committee local government group. So
You've both responded positively to Jeff. We're meeting
Okay.
on Monday.
okay, if you two would be willing to stay on after, and Beth, you can make me host when this group is done, if you have a few minutes just to talk about nuts and bolts and
Okay.
widgets and all that. And Jeff, feel free to hang on as well. It's going to be just LAC .1. Yeah.
It might be, people might be interested in hearing just a tiny bit about House Bill 1055, which was PI'd in committee. It is prohibit wireless networked voting systems.
Oh,
And-
yes.
Tina Peters testified in support of the bill. We are monitoring the bill. Other county clerks also testified in support of the bill. The Secretary of State was opposed to the bill. And it turns out that I think maybe two of the people who testified in support of the bill are named defendants in the lawsuit that the League of Women Voters has against United States Election Integrity Plan. So that was kind of interesting to see that. But anyway, it was postponed indefinitely, i.e. killed, on an 8-3 vote in the State Affairs Committee, which is where these election bills go, but it's also where the bills go to die that don't belong in that committee. So, yeah.
I listened to that committee. If you want, I can tell you about it.
I listened to it too. Why don't you tell
Oh,
us your
okay.
thoughts if we've got time?
Well, it just seemed to me that there were a lot of, experts, and of course, you just don't know who really is the experts. A lot of experts basically saying that our election machinery is able to connect to the internet. And the bill is to make that illegal. It seemed to me a reasonable bill, but it was voted down. It was by party line. But
There wasn't a lot of as much discussion as I would have liked about the
No.
nuts and bolts. And I felt
No.
like it was preordained how it was going to happen.
yeah, that often happens. It seems pretty obvious, that people were prepared even before the testimonies on how they were going to vote.
This topic has been a hugely hot topic forever and ever, and the newer standards for voting systems, the voluntary standards set by the Election Assistance Commission at the federal level, also try to prohibit use of wireless. The debate was about whether you needed to make it physically impossible at the hardware level to do wireless, or whether it was okay to just disable it in software. There are some states that actually use it and want to report votes electronically right away. Colorado has not been one of those for a long time. So the story that I heard from the Secretary of State is that they absolutely try to prohibit it. But my guess is that they're trying to do that via software. And if you do it via software, that means that a hacker can actually, change things and make the hardware leak information. So it's definitely a problem. I think one of the questions is also how hard it would be to make the change within a certain period of time to actually, what some people do is they disable the hardware features that allow for it. But it is a very complicated topic.
What they said was that there's an icon, and that if the icon is grayed out, then it's disabled. And the experts, yeah, exactly. And that's what the expert's point was that's not a valid way to check that. So, but it was.
I didn't understand that, like Curtis Chung, a blind activist, testified, and he uses the wireless feature to send ballots, to send his ballot to the Secretary of State because he can't read a paper ballot. So he fills it out using assistive technology on his computer and then submits it electronically.
But would this bill have actually prevented that? The way that he votes is via an
Yes,
uncertified.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Have-
Yeah. It was specifically targeted to, in my opinion, from the disability perspective, to undo what the disability community worked so hard to do in getting the ability to return ballots electronically based on a print disability.
Because the way that, the system that we use in Colorado to return ballots electronically in rare circumstances is specifically, it's not certified. There is no federal certification for any system like that. It's not defined as a voting system, which makes some of us tear our hair out because people are obviously voting with it. But I would have thought, so that's very interesting if they really did frame it to do. Is that what the proponents were also speaking in favor of, removing that avenue of voting?
I felt there wasn't enough discussion about that. I wanted a lot more discussion about that particular issue because that's an issue that's important to the league. And they said something about, oh, well, you just turn the switch. And I'm like, well, then that's what we're doing already with the Secretary of State's office. How is that going to prohibit wireless networking systems? Like, to me, they were saying we don't want it at all capable of doing it. Oh, yes, we do want it capable when we have a disability, print disability person who needs it. I was confused. Maybe Gary could figure it out.
All I know is it went 3 hours. I thought they had enough discussion.
Well, sorry, I missed the fun.
Yeah, not only that, it started like, I was in that committee till 9 o'clock.
It only went 2 hours, and then after that was the gender neutral, a little over 2 hours,
Oh,
and
the
then after that
bathrooms.
was the gender neutral bathroom one.
Okay, I guess it just seemed like 3 hours.
Time flies when you're listening to too much testimony.
Were you interested in just hearing about Jennifer Parenti's bill since she hasn't been able to join us, or?
Did we talk about them some?
I think I mentioned what they were about. But I didn't know if there was more to be said.
Do you know more, Faye? Fair?
Oh, well, I just, the bill that's coming before tomorrow, it's to create a task force. No, I don't think we did talk about that. The purpose of this bill is to create two task forces to study HOA law and Metro District law and come up with possible changes. Our group doesn't oppose it, but we would like to see an amendment. My concern was that, and other people in my group, is that while this task force is going on, that will be used as an excuse not to do any other common sense legislation that may come before the chambers. And they said they were going to try to include some language at some point to say that was not their intent and that they encouraged things to go forward otherwise. And the other thing we objected to was they had an order as far as the task forces. They were going to do HOAs first and then the Metro District's second. So it would have made it 2 years before any result would come out of the task force for Metro Districts. And so we suggested that they run parallel to one another. And there are some folks that, and John, maybe you know his name, the guy from the HOA. Do you know his name?
Stan, I can't pronounce his last name. I apologize.
But he was opposed, correct? Because he said they've already studied HOA law to death, and he feels like there's already enough information out there to make those sorts of decisions. Other than that, I don't know what else to add. Do you have anything, John?
No, there were just a couple of things. There was a provision for the HOA task force to have a representative from any statewide organization that has been advocating on behalf of residents. We simply asked that they make that same provision applicable to the or to the Metro District Task Force. And they also suggested having a special district attorney, and we pointed out, well, that's going to probably mean a developer-oriented attorney. So if you're going to have any attorneys, you're probably going to have two, one that represents the developer point of view and one that represents the resident point of view. But otherwise, yeah, the issues are the timing. We'd like to do something sooner than 2 years, and we certainly don't want it to retard or discourage the hearing of substantive reform bills in the meantime. And the second, who's going to be on this task force? That's the key. It won't be much good if you don't have adequate representation by all of the interested parties. And unfortunately, as you can tell from the way the legislation culture works, the residents don't have much of a voice at the State House on Metro District issues.
do you want to explicitly have, I've forgotten, there's not something explicitly on debt? Is there, and something explicitly on elections? For
There's not-
the, for the
In
Metro
in this
District?
particular bill?
Yeah, and that this is, what's the bill number?
11,
1105.
1105, yeah.
1105, yeah, on task forces.
Yeah. There's nothing specific on the debt or elections. It's basically saying, we know there's a problem. Let's get together and talk about it and see if we can come up with any solutions. So arguably, it would eventually cover all of those issues, but there's no specific reference to any specific issues in the bill. It's just let's get together, talk about it, and perhaps come up with some solutions.
I'm thinking if the developers, if a developer representative becomes the chair and sets the agenda, that some things that you might want to have come up might not come up unless they're
Right, that would
explicitly
be
listed.
problematic.
So just having worked with state task forces, just.
Oh, really?
Just a thought, not in the state, so I'm
Okay.
speaking from other
No, but I
states.
see your point.
Yeah, yeah, if it's explicitly on there, then they have to, and if it's not, then, oh, well, we really don't have time, we only have 4 months and blah, 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 blah. So just thoughts.
There is another bill on debt that Mike Weissman's carrying, 1090, is it? Is
Yes.
Yes.
that what you were thinking of, Maud? I don't know.
No, I was thinking of the larger debt. So 1090 just says that developers can't buy the
Yeah.
debt of the Metro District, i.e.
Right.
they can't sell 20% bonds and then, oh, buy them.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But no, this is the larger question of
Okay.
who gets to decide how much debt gets issued and
Oh,
Oh, that,
all-
I
just
think that's
all
the
of
Senate
those.
bill, perhaps, that you're referring to.
the developers can't buy the,
No, that's Weissman's bill, but there's something about maximum debt in that new Senate Bill 110.
okay,
Well, it's just a disclosure bill on that issue. It would simply say you have to put in the service plan what's already in the service plan.
Right.
And that
Nothing
is-
new.
oh, the transparency bill.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank-
okay.
Thank you. Yeah, one of the, unfortunately, there's no bill on the table that says this, but we're going to try to convert their transparency bill into a real transparency bill when it gets to the House. The same way we did with 262 back in 21, where we were able to include the notifications by real mail or email instead of posting it on a fence post or putting it in a newspaper that nobody reads with respect to the election notices. So we were able to accomplish that with their bill in 2021. We're going to try to do the same thing with their transparency bill and convert it into something that really means something, which would include disclosing, for example, what the total outstanding debt is currently, what the proposed outstanding debt will be by the time of build out, and then disclosing other information which they tell everybody else except the residents. So
Like how much their debt, how much their monthly payment will be for the Metro District. Because it does not show up in the closing docs because the closing docs only include the first year taxes. And unfortunately, those first year taxes do not include the value of the house. They only include the value of the lot.
and they don't include the debt once
Correct.
they start issuing the bonds. That's the killer. When you start
Yeah.
issuing $50 million bonds or $90 million bonds, that tends to increase your tax debt.
Significantly.
So we are meeting on the third Wednesday. It seems. Today is the third Wednesday.
I guess.
Today's the third Wednesday. Okay. So would appreciate folks who have thoughts about things we want to talk about next time. Obviously, some of it will be whatever election-related bills there are in the hopper, and how they're doing, and how sad or glad we are that what has happened to some of them.
I guess we should mention Jennifer Parenti's other bill as well, which is the ethics bill, because there's a lot of people not wanting to see that happen, which I don't understand, but that did get out of committee in the House, but it's going to be a battle in the Senate.
What is the bill number, Fair?
1035, John? 65.
65.
1065. And it's really to get two laws that already exist in sync. One law that states, ethical behavior is expected from all forms of government, including school districts and special districts. But unfortunately, the Ethics Committee says they do not have jurisdiction over special districts and school districts because it's not specified in the law. So this is an attempt to correct that oversight.
Was this a voter approved citizens initiative way back when?
Someone else mentioned that at our league meeting yesterday, Christina, didn't they? That they thought that was through a citizens initiative. So I'm guessing that's how it got excluded. But I see no reason why we shouldn't, because what the frustration is that people have no one to go to. We have attempted different things to like the Secretary of State. We've talked to the Attorney General, and everywhere you go, they say, well, that's not our jurisdiction. It's like nobody's got jurisdiction. So this is just a small attempt to give people at least one avenue. It only deals with financial considerations, from what I understand, the Ethics Committee. So for me, it's a no-brainer bill, but there's a lot of opposition from the developer industry.
I
This
had
also
concerns
includes-
about the citizens initiative amendment because it said so they defined family member, like if your family took a contract or something like that, you had to report it. And I know that there are a lot of family members who are estranged from each other. And so how does that work if you think you're okay, but your brother that you're not talking to has some contract? And anyway, that was my concern. My guess is it doesn't come up and they're reasonable about it and all that, but.
Are you talking about the one that's gonna raise the level on contracts? I'm confused because I don't think this bill deals with what you're talking about, but maybe I'm
Good.
wrong.
I'm looking for the original citizens initiative and I'll send it to you.
I have no idea. Just
Okay.
someone brought that up and I said I didn't know, but
Yeah.
Christina, did you have
I
any
knew
idea
about
on
it and
that?
I didn't know enough detail to say, but I was quite certain it had to have been left out of the original citizens initiative. And remember, this also addresses the school board's
Right.
ethics. And that, given the problems in Douglas County, it's probably an issue that ought to be addressed across the board for government entities and make sure all government entities are included in the ethic considerations. And Celeste, I don't know what the original citizens initiative defined family relationships to be, how deep it went.
Celeste asked in the chat if Christina and others are planning any suggestions at program planning on special districts, particularly metro districts, local league study or take a position or concurrence on. Does Jeffco have a metro district position,
We're relying on the state position right now,
which
And-
is,
says basically that they should be limited. And of course, we also have a good governance in
Yeah.
Jeffco specifically
Okay.
that addresses that.
okay,
But
super.
the state one says try to limit the number of special districts.
And they're growing by leaps and bounds.
Yeah,
I mean, Colorado, Jeff can address this better than I can, but we have over 44. I think Colorado's #1 in the number of local districts, and we're continue to grow. And, just as an example as to how easy it is to make them grow, our county commissioners in Jeffco on the Red Rock Center, they had a request from the developer to amend the service plan to instead of having 2 metro districts, to make it 5, and with the same amount of people. There's no new housing, there's no new nothing, but it was just going to give the developer long-term control over all issues, because 2 of the metro districts that they added aren't even ever going to have houses in them, so that they don't even represent people. So we went from 2 governments to 5. For absolutely no reason. And you look at somewhere out in Aurora, like Powhatan, whatever it is, they have 11 metro districts in that neighborhood. And that's going to be for around 3,300 people or 3,300 homes. But so that's how easy it is to make small governments grow in our state because of this metro district law.
Maud, there is one point of interest, and Fair found it yesterday, and it has to do with actually the Colorado positions. And while the metro districts portion of it says specifically we want to limit the number of metro districts, there's another part of the overall government that says we want to encourage as many small governments as possible. That was the essence of what you were reading, isn't it, Fair?
but
And
I thought there was also something against proliferation of special districts. not
there
just
is,
metro.
and that's what we're relying on. But she became quite concerned yesterday when she found this general one that said, "Oh, we want to encourage as many small governments as possible." And I said, "Oh no, go look at special districts." On the
But
state chart.
that might need to be reworded, frankly, the big statement at the beginning, because it's rather deceiving.
Yeah, let me make a note to take a look at that.
Now, and that policy, I think it was dated 1986, wasn't it, Christina, or
Something like
1989,
that.
one or the other.
Do you remember where that was cited from?
It's under local governments for the state positions.
Where under local governments?
It's the document, the Colorado league document for positions.
Oh, the league.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Oh, it's a league document. Okay.
right.
yeah, it's the
document.
league position, and it is
Sorry.
local government, page 11. Is it the summary or is it the major one?
Fair doesn't have a copy of this, and I'm looking at my old one right now.
Oh, well, let me drop a link in the
I mean,
chat.
I can pull mine up on the electric copy, but
If you go to the State League website, legislative action, and where the league
It's
stands,
positions and actions, is that what we?
it would be, I just dropped a link in the chat. It is, yeah, positions for action. Right, and there's some local government stuff on page 11.
Mhm.
That's very short. And then there's more local government.
Wait, the link you posted doesn't have 11 pages, which,
The link I posted should have been to the page that then has a link to the PDF.
which
If you
is.
scroll
wait,
down.
It has lots of links.
It's
to-
the 2023 LWVCO positions for action,
For action.
which now includes something on election security, Neil.
Isn't it great? And beware, because of how, I'll just say bluntly, awful Club Express is, that link will go bad in just another 5 minutes, I believe.
Right, but we will have moved on to something else.
So
So,
that's a good reason to have posted not the link to the document we want, but a link to something that will always have a link to the document we want, even if it's hard to figure out where it is.
yes, so. Where is,
Well, I'm glancing through it. I don't see anything like that in there, but
Did you
So
find it,
I would like to
Christina?
have a
I'm
town
looking
hall
frantically.
about metro districts. Who would I contact? I don't think anyone, I live in a metro district and elections are coming up and I haven't been notified. So when this was brought up before, I went on the website. There hasn't been a posting for agenda or meeting since October of last year. So I don't know I don't know what to do about it.
the
Because
Secretary
again,
of State's rules require that they posted a notice in December, I think, or there's a certain number of days before the election.
Yeah, 70,
And they don't have to post it anywhere that anybody sees at first.
right.
right, but I don't know where that is.
Oh,
But
no.
again, it's not on their website. Is there
No,
even
Jeff,
the
actually
agenda?
now, with that Senate bill from 2 years ago, they have to inform by email or mail. It's required, but just for metro districts, not all special districts.
But the other special districts do have to do some additional notifications more than they did in the past. One is on their website.
Mhm.
And the other, but I would notify the Department of Local Affairs. Because it's actually their
Wow.
rules that are saying that
Yeah,
this
there's
is
a
not
special-
following
there-
under the SOS's website.
There's a
SOS
special
rule.
district election person in the Division of Local Government in that department. And that's who you need to speak to.
On the DOLA site, Jeff, you're talking?
There's a person at the Division of Local Government, which is within the Department of Local Affairs,
Okay.
who is the elections person, and that's what they do, is special district elections. I don't
And
know
they,
who
do
that
they
person
do
is.
enforcement as well?
Pardon me?
They do enforcement?
No, they don't have any authority over them.
Oh.
I mean, unless they're supposed to send a copy of the results of the election into them, and if they don't do that, then the Division of Local Government reminds them that they didn't send it in, but I don't know that there are a few more little complications too, but there is a
What's the
person
name
there
of-
that can answer your question and tell
What's
you.
the name of your metro district? Dr. Duncan?
Cross Creek.
Cross Creek?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And actually there seems to be two names and I don't know why, because I used to be the president, right? And so now it's Cross Creek Water District and Cross Creek Metropolitan, but it's Cross Creek Metropolitan District. And so I went on the website. There has not been a meeting. They meet every third Wednesday of the month at noon. And there has not been anything posted since October. And I was not notified by email or letter that there was going to be an election.
Jeff,
And I used to be on the board.
is there any enforcement mechanism for that notice required for an election, a special district election?
The Secretary of State is all, and then they say they don't enforce them. So it's a rule in the secretary, it's a part of the Secretary of State's election rules. It used to be in the statute in the Special District Act, but it was taken out when the Secretary of State took it. Is your district within the city of Fountain?
Yes.
Okay. Well,
So I see a notice of a special meeting on some NABR network site related to that.
Okay, I found a special district transparency notice. I mean, it would be very difficult to find this. It's on the DOLA website.
Can you link to it? Can you
Under
post the link?
contacts. It's under contacts.
Can anybody share their screen?
Or Fair, can you drop the link in the chat?
Sure. Okay,
Deidre, does dropping the link in the chat work for you?
yes, I can, just a sec.
Yeah.
I just have to figure out how to do it. Okay.
And this is really helpful to kind of dig in and see how this stuff actually works. So I appreciate having a real example to understand here.
Okay, there is the link. So if you'll all go to that link, then hit the tab that says contacts.
Yeah, it goes right to
And
contact.
it will say, it says transparency notice to electors. Open that document that was sent out December 16th.
So the one
So
from
Fair,
2023.
If an election gets canceled,
Uh-huh.
well, I'm not sure what this transparency notice is because I would put something else in the chat just now about the Ethics Commission.
Mhm.
Mostly maybe for you, Christina, or Fair for you, because we were talking about the Ethics Commission. But this transparency notice, what if the election is canceled because there aren't enough people running?
Well, that happens all the time because nobody gets they never see the notification. So
So
nobody,
is the notification before the election gets canceled, or it's a notification of the
It's
election?
and the election would get canceled if they do not have enough candidates
Got it.
within the period before the election to run.
I
There's
believe
Okay,
that
this is
happened-
Westminster. I'm looking for the Fountain.
There's also a notice of cancellation of election that they have to file.
Right.
And they
I'm
did
believe
sorry,
that
what
that's
last,
did you
due by
say,
March
Dr.
8th.
Duncan?
I'm looking for the Cross Creek Metropolitan District in Fountain.
Right,
Right.
that's one. It's El Paso County, isn't it?
there is one that was filed last March.
Where?
22, but now you have to have an election this year too, so that's the last one that was filed.
Well, the one I'm seeing is,
Fountain, Colorado.
Mhm.
I'm doing the Cross Creek Metropolitan District in El Paso County.
Yeah.
I'm sure
And
that's
it's in
it.
the
And if you
chat.
go to
The
the
elect-
page,
The elections tab shows the one that was canceled last spring.
right, but go to contacts, hit the contacts tab.
Okay.
And then hit that top 12/16/2022 transparency notice to electors.
Well, this is the names of the board members. These are the contacts for the board that they have to file every year.
No, but this is supposed to be the transparency notice about time and place. Okay, for meeting. Oh, yeah, this is just for yeah, you're right. This is just for having a meeting.
It does say
No,
date
no,
of
here it
next
is. Go
regular
to the
election.
second Page, it says date of next regular election,
Mhm.
May 2nd, then it tells you where to send self-nomination forms.
Yeah.
And
Received by February 24th.
right, but the question is, file copy of this notice can be found with the clerk and
Mhm.
recorder of each county and the
Huh.
Division of Local Government. So I don't know where else they're posting it. But they're
Well, this
supposed
is-
to send
this
this
is-
out by email or mail to all electors in that district.
Mhm.
So this is the actual information that should be in those notices.
Yes, I mean, this says it is a notice. It
Yeah.
says special
Yeah.
district transparency notice.
Yeah, okay, great,
Yeah,
very helpful.
but it isn't very transparent, is it?
But then, so as you say, you can presumably contact the attorney listed there and say, was this on the webpage, your webpage, was this sent via mail or via email?
Right. Did you finally find that, Dr. Duncan?
I'm looking right now. So you're on the Cross Creek Regional Park?
No, no, no. Go into the chat and I put the link next to my initials FR. If you go into the chat, that'll take you to the DOLA page. This is where you find everything is on this DOLA page. Or everything you can find, right,
So
John?
the local government
Okay, so I'm
information.
on the DOLA page. So where do I go from there?
Okay, then I should have taken you right to blah, blah, blah. Okay.
Contacts.
Contacts, go hit contacts. That,
Okay, local
Tab.
government filings.
and then it says transparency notice to electors at the top, 12/16/2022. And hit over to the right, that little magnifying glass,
Okay,
and that will open the document. And that tells you where you can get your self-nomination form.
So that
And then the
downloads
election
the
will-
PDF file, right?
You can
What's
also
that?
get, oh, sorry.
third Thursday, okay.
But the problem is, and John, correct me if I'm wrong, it is now required by law that they send this notification out via email or mail. And that's based on Senate District Bill 262 of 2021. Just for metro districts. It doesn't apply to other special districts.
So if I were moving into her community
Uh-huh,
and I received this, I would have no clue what this is.
exactly.
Are they trying to get nominated to the board? This Peter guy? What?
Peter
What's-
Sussmill is the.
Peter is the attorney, right?
Yeah.
He's the person running the election.
And he's self-nominated. He's completed some self-nomination form?
No, he's telling you where to get one.
Oh, well, that's pretty darn clear too.
Oh,
Mhm.
yeah.
But I'm here in the community and I wouldn't know to go to that page to look.
Exactly.
I'm
yeah.
on their website and there's nothing on here. I looked last night before I said anything because I'm sure
Yeah.
someone called her because I put it, I said it that there was nothing in there. There's a meeting tomorrow. And I
Well, I
can't
would
go.
bring this up and I don't know, do we have the link to the law here? Let me see.
Bear, did you notice, look at the elections? They have not had an election since 2012.
Yep. Yep. So.
I love this
that's
one.
why,
It's
But
great.
because I'm not telling
2012,
you.
and that's not, well, I don't know about election, because I got off in 2019 when I was elected. And I do, some of these same people were the officers of the HOA, so I don't know how, I don't know. But
Well,
Yeah,
that's,
I'll be done within half an
Here-
hour.
but as you
Here-
can see right now, they already have a vacancy that someone should just be able to go in and apply for and say, I want to
I
fill
just-
the vacancy.
I just posted in the chat a link to the self-nomination form that you can download from this. I don't think you have to get it from the board.
No, you don't.
You send it
But
to
the
the board.
point is, you
The-
need to find out
The
about it.
Division of Local Government prescribes what that form has, and this is off their website. So the link is the last thing in the chat there that I just put in. If you want to see the form. I don't
and
know.
you have to print it, it's not fillable.
Yeah. you'd
It
have
not only
download
has
it.
to be printed, it has to be handwritten.
Well, the form has to be printed off and then you handwrite, fill the blanks.
But the rumor is that they will not accept one that's been typed into.
It depends
Right.
on the metro district. Some metro districts have done that. They have done everything they can to prevent people from filing these. They'll send them back and say, needs to be hand printed. They don't all do that, but some of them do.
So
You see
that's
why we're
a
so concerned
clear
about.
thing to
metro districts.
outlaw. For someone who's disabled and who can't print by hand, that's a pretty prima facie evidence of discrimination.
So I just had an email from Jennifer. Did you see it, Maude? She copied you. And I wrote her back and said, we're on right now, if you want to come on. So,
So we're right. They've canceled the elections tab says that they canceled the election in 2012, 14, 16, 18, 20, and 2022.
and that's because they didn't have enough people running.
Right.
So they.
Well,
canceled.
they didn't have a competitive, I mean, they didn't have more people running than there are seats?
Yes, that's correct.
Right.
O'Neill, if you got somebody you were on the board and you got one of your friends to apply to be on the board and there was one candidate, one vacancy, they're a shoo-in.
Exactly.
That's how you stuff a board.
And we've had reports,
Recently.
I've had at least a handful of reports in the last couple of weeks where the developer hired management company actually talks people out of self-nominating because it's too expensive to have an election.
Yeah.
So if you don't have, if you only have enough people running for the number of seats, they try to discourage anyone else from running because it's too expensive to run an election. And to Christina's point, I've worked with districts where they canceled elections and the developers continued to run the board for up to 20 years.
Is there any way, and this might be something we just need to start a database on, can you identify any specific management companies that are doing this? Or is it across the board?
There are some bad offenders, and I could identify them, but as a general rule, it's the culture. I would have to say, I have not yet come across a management company that didn't discourage people from running because it was going to cost too much to have an election.
Oh, I know a good one. There's one that is very small and handles just a few districts right now. I don't know how many right now, but there is at least one that is a good management company for special districts that I could tell you about.
Oh, yeah.
I'm thinking, broad term. I mean, this is not just an elections issue. This is we need to get people into the board meetings. We need to get people into looking at the financials. This is a long-term project across the board from my perspective as Jeffco League president. And, if I can start identifying particularly bad actors at the management company level, then I can direct our research a little bit that way. Or coming up right now, I mean, Karen and I were trying to think, well, start with the high rate ones. That may or may not be a great place to start.
And the manager,
What's that?
the manager of cross companies in City.
Is who?
She is the manager of several different metropolitan districts in Colorado.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're welcome. John, maybe that's a goal we could have in our group is to start a database. I did send some of you, I think I sent it to Christine and John, you've seen it. And Jeff, did I send you the letter that is the epitome, the newsletter about Charles Wolfsberger and his management of his district and what a wonderful newsletter he sent out, really explaining everything to the residents of that district. I would have to say he's the epitome of a good manager.
No, I didn't see that.
I didn't send, I thought I sent it to you.
That's okay. I'll get it.
Yeah, he's
We,
one.
one second, we have Rep Parenti joining us.
Oh, good. All right. There she is.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello and welcome.
Thank you. I'm double zooming it. So if you see me like move my head for a second, it's because something's going on in committee. Luckily, you caught me on a quarantine day. Some of you may have heard I recently tested positive for COVID. and I feel fine, but I have to stay home regardless, but it gives me a little bit of flexibility when I'm supposed to technically be listening to a meeting. But they're just doing introductory remarks, so.
So you have here, I'm Maud Narol, I'm co-director for Action and Advocacy. Sorry.
Community home. In a rural community,
Sorry, the other person in my house hit something in their pocket that made the car alarm go off. Co-director for Action and Advocacy, we have here a group, the remnants of the Elections Task Force. We've been going for about an hour and 45 minutes, and a lot of folks have dropped off. And this group is, many of us particularly interested in metro districts. And we heard a little bit about your three bills. So you have the floor for whichever of those you'd like to talk about. And we'd also have, if you want to come back in a month, just ping us and we can put you on.
Great. Well, first of all, let me just say thank you for having me, and I apologize again for not making the primary meeting time. My name is Jennifer Parenti. I am the new representative for Colorado House District 19, which represents parts of Boulder and Weld counties. I personally live in Weld. I guess it sounds like I have three bills going on that are of interest to the group. So let me give you just a quick rundown on the two that have been introduced and are on their way, and then another one that we're holding on to for a little while until we can stay cold. So the first one that was introduced and passed through committee last week is a bill that would put special districts and school district members under the authority of the Independent Ethics Commission. I assume that's one of the ones that you're speaking about. I co-sponsored this bill with Representative Tammy Story, and I really like it. You know, some of you know that I used to be an organizer for Common Cause, so I worked for your sister organization, and I worked with the League a lot, and I know that this is right up the League's alley in terms of good governance, transparency, accountability, making sure that the people that we elect to public office who are entrusted with large amounts of public dollars are being ethical in their duties and remembering their responsibilities to put service before self.
Well, what's the bill number?
It should be 1065, as I recall. I can look that up if I'm wrong. There were some concerns brought up at the committee about, I'm going to use an ugly word right now, don't freak out, the constitutionality of the bill. The bill is not unconstitutional, but it's possible that it was drafted in a way that amended some paragraphs that were voted on by the voters in a constitutional amendment. And so we just have to redraft how that piece is done. So there were words that were used that kind of, you know, got people a little bit anxious. It's not unconstitutional. The General Assembly has absolute authority over these matters. We just have to make sure that we don't modify the language that the voters amended or that the voters approved. We'll just add a paragraph and it'll be fine. So there will be an amendment to the bill coming forward at some time in the future, either at appropriations or at the committee of the whole, just to amend again how that portion of the bill was written, but not what it does. So I'll just pause there and see if anybody had any questions about the special districts bill with respect to the IEC.
Are you facing an uphill battle in the Senate committee?
We don't think so.
Okay.
And honestly, even the opposition that we got in committee from our Republican colleagues was mostly couched in terms of this constitutionality issue. And a number of them came up to me afterwards and said, hey, once that gets resolved, I have no problems with this bill. So
good. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, we're not expecting any pushback. The second bill that I'm running that's going to come up to committee tomorrow is a task force bill for that would create 2 task forces, one on HOAs and one on metro districts. It staggers the timing of those task forces.
What's the number of that one? Forgive me if I,
1105.
1105. Yeah.
thank you.
It staggers the timing of the task forces so that they can both get done before the end of the next session in 2024, but staggering them so that some agencies who are on both bills can have the same person participate. So that's why we've got one and then the other. And also because we know that some of the recommendations that come out of the HOA task force will also be appropriate to the Metro District Task Force in terms of transparency and communications with residents prior to purchase and other things. Both task forces fall under the authority of the Attorney General's office and will be organized and kind of managed by the Attorney General's office. We did that intentionally to give them that really strong consumer protection brand. That's what this is really about. It's about consumer protection.
Thank you.
And then ultimately, the idea of these task forces is to bring all those stakeholders together. They have representation from homeowners, from homeowner advocates. They have representation from developers and Metro District and HOA managers as well, so that we can bring all of those people together, come up with a list of recommendations and have those go forward to the legislature as bills that were stakeholdered previously, right? So I know that there's been some concern about, well, why don't we just pass the bills? Well, if we bring some of these ideas to the legislature right now, they come without that branding of, hey, this came from a task force, a potentially bipartisan task force, certainly a task force that has homeowners and developers, sitting on it together. So if we can get these ideas out of the task force, they're going to be a lot easier and faster to pass. And so that was one of the main impetuses of doing it in this way.
So Rep. Parenti, we have, I'm not sure if everybody in the meeting at the moment is a league member. Our task forces are open to anybody, including representatives, if they have time during the off season. We have several people who are on I'll mangle the name, but a special district reform group. So they may be speaking with that hat.
Yes, and I know John certainly through that work, and I don't know about maybe some of the others who might be on the line. But I'll just pause and see if people have questions about the task force bill.
Yeah, I was wondering, Representative Parenti, did you address our issues about the timing and also that it's not intended that other good legislation that comes forward will be ignored because of this task force in the meantime?
Right.
And you did address that.
Well, we're not going to write that into statute, but
Okay.
we've already, I think I mentioned it in my email. We've already spoken to all of the bill sponsors who have bills in this space and made sure that their bills were introduced before this one, so that this one couldn't be used as an excuse to not do the others. And we have stakeholded with all of our other legislators to say, don't use this bill as an excuse to not vote yes on 1090 or 1105 or any other reason. The only time that we've seen this bill used as an excuse to postpone indefinitely another bill was a bill we didn't want to see postponed, or we didn't want to see passed. And so from that standpoint, it was fine. And they're like, hey, if this is really a concern, why not address it at the task force, postpone indefinitely? And so that was okay. I think we have a large enough caucus around this issue of affordable housing and consumer protection in the housing space that we're not going to have any issues getting this forward. We even have MDEC, Small District Association, on board with this bill. Of course, they wanted to see some tweaks to how the task force was made up. We accommodated a couple of those. We didn't accommodate all of them because ultimately we want this to be a bill about homeowners' rights and protections.
And are you going to run those two task force in parallel?
No, and that's why I was saying they're staggered, but they're staggered intentionally. One, because we want the HOA task force recommendations to be able to go forward to the Metro District Task Force, because there is some similarity there. And also because we have some agencies who are on both task forces that will end up using the same person, right? And so we wanted them staggered. Yeah.
So it's not until next year that the Metro District Task Force is going to meet.
Well, no, it will meet this year. Should meet. There was a mistake in one of the drafts that went out. The Metro District Task Force should be appointed in November. And therefore you think meetings to start around 1 December, and the report will come out 1 March, which gives us plenty of time to address, pass those bills in the 2024 session.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I always thought the task forces ran over the summer, but apparently not.
It would not have been feasible to run them both over the summer. Okay. It's just too short of a time frame, and we did want to make sure that we had recommendations before the 2024 session was up.
Okay.
So we have one, the HOA appoints in July. We can assume that they'll start meetings in August. Their interim report is due in September, at the end of September. That's so that appointments can be made to the Metro District Task Force during October, and then have that stagger along. And then the HOA Task Force final report is due in December, and then 1 December, and then the Metro District final reports due 1 March.
Great. Okay.
Yep.
And
Question for you, Representative Parenti. Is it possible in the listing of the duties that are prescribed as being among the others that the task force will study?
The first panel, if we could please have.
Can you hear me okay? I don't know what that was. That it might also list, just to make sure that they cover it, list elections in their prescribed duties?
We do know that they will address elections. I can guarantee you that they're going to address elections. I can guarantee you that because I have a pretty good sense of which representative is going to be appointed to the HOA task force and which representative is going to be appointed to the Metro District Task Force. So we will make sure that they address elections. So,
okay.
But yeah, no, elections will be part of their oversight for sure. I apologize. I have to keep an ear to what's going on in committee. And so that's what you were hearing in the background. So that's all.
That's fine. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
John, did you have a question on committee on the special district task force makeup? Or did you already send that?
Yeah, I sent it. I think
Okay.
Representative Parenti probably saw my suggestions regarding having somebody representing a advocacy group on metro districts that exists, and then also the attorney issue. It's unfortunate, but there is a real dichotomy between the legal representation on metro district issues as between the developer oriented community and the residents. So we just need to make sure if you have an attorney there that will likely be an SDA attorney, you'll also need to have an attorney there representing the resident interests. But otherwise, I think everything else was covered. Thank you.
Did you have a third bill that you were going to talk about?
Yeah.
I don't want to move on if we're not done with this.
Yeah. Well, the third bill is the one that I really wanted to come to the league for. I'm happy to answer questions about the other two. Thanks, John. Yeah, we certainly saw your email. we have basically what we call a strike below amendment ready for this bill, where we had to rewrite so much of it that we're basically presenting an entire new bill. And it incorporates a number of the changes people asked us to make. Of course, we couldn't incorporate all of them. Somebody wanted us to add like 20 HOA organizations to the task force, and we can't do that. It gets unwieldy. But we certainly, we went back through the amended makeup and did a count of which persons we think are more on the homeowner side, which more are on the business side, and made sure that it was a little bit it was balanced and fair and also focused on the homeowner. Let's put it that way.
This is the third bill? What's the number?
No,
of it?
that's
Oh,
the
wait,
second.
wait, this is the, and I just wanted to thank you very much. I knew nothing about metro districts. I've been learning, have been appalled, and so am very grateful that you're working in this space.
Ditto.
Growing up as a kid.
Great.
both of my parents-
All right, so the third bill that I really wanted to talk to you about today is an elections bill. So this is right up your alley. I provided a copy of it to Peggy. I hope that she, I don't know if she shared it with you or if you've had a chance to see it.
Now everything is just so.
No.
Military veteran that lives on
Which
the-
bill is it?
And on social.
Well,
Peggy,
I will say that this conversation is one I want to have with the League of Women Voters. So if you're not a member of the League of Women Voters, I would have to ask that we either reschedule this meeting or do it in a different forum.
Yeah.
Because this is a confidential conversation with the League of Women Voters about a bill that has not yet been introduced.
John, you remember, right?
Not officially, but I will be tomorrow.
Okay.
I'm gonna join.
I will say that this bill has not been introduced. And so I would ask that no one talk about this bill outside of this forum. And the reason for that is because we are still stakeholding this bill with some people who may or may not be in agreement with it. And we don't want the word to get out before we're ready. But the intent of this bill is twofold. In my mind, it's just a good government, good, clean elections bill. And I'm really hoping it's not controversial, but you just never know these days. Essentially what it does is it closes an existing loophole that leaves municipalities who have not gone home rule yet as the only remaining elections in the state other than special districts that are not subject to campaign contribution limits. So it establishes campaign contributions for statutory towns, non-home rule cities. Right? We can't write a law that establishes one for home rule cities. And then it establishes a data retention requirement for clerks.
Okay.
So right now, the Colorado municipal statute says that campaign finance data only has to be maintained for 1 year after the election. And then only on the people who won. And so even in researching this bill, we went to go look at the municipal campaign finance contributions from 2021, and they've already been deleted. They're already gone. We went to look for the ones from 2020, already gone for many of the towns. Some of the towns kept them, but a lot of the towns deleted them. So it just establishes a new data retention requirement that they have to keep that election data for 10 years.
Yeah.
That's good.
So again, I'm hoping this is non-controversial. I'm hoping we can all agree that this is just good election law.
Sure.
But the bill hasn't been introduced, so we're just trying to make sure that we do this right.
And Representative Sirota, 4 years ago, she had a bill that put limits on county elections, financial limits.
Yeah, so we closed the loop on county commissioners. We
Mhm.
closed the loop last year on school districts, school board elections.
Mhm.
This is the same thing. Now it's statutory towns. And I can imagine that at some point we'll probably do special districts too. Right now, special districts are not getting that kind of big money attention. So it hasn't been necessary. But should it become necessary, we can certainly look at that.
Okay, that's good.
I would think it would be necessary.
We just haven't seen it. Like, we haven't seen like these special district elections become these political events. Most of the time, it's the exact opposite. Like, you can't even get people to run. And so,
Well, that's mostly because they haven't been informed that they can't.
Yeah,
true.
I have no idea.
But the money has not been an issue, right? You know, they're not winning because they haven't raised $50,000, right? So, so that's a different issue. But certainly, when we look at something like the Metro District Task Force, that's something that we can look at if people feel strongly about it.
Good.
Solve the problem before it becomes a problem.
Exactly. And so my district, I represent the 3 largest statutory towns in the state of Colorado: Erie, Frederick, and Firestone. And this is becoming an issue for us. It wasn't an issue before, so I think they just, you know, statutory towns, they're all small. Erie's got 32,000 people now. We had individual contributions of, you know, $2,000 in the last mayoral race. I heard of other towns where it was $5,000. Broomfield, before they put their contribution limits in, they had an individual donation of $40,000 to a single campaign. Those are people just buying elections. We can't allow that to happen.
Yeah, I tell you, in Lakewood, the last mayoral election, the mayor, who was aligned with the developer interests, obtained over $600,000 in contribution.
Isn't that crazy? Unfortunately, this bill won't fix that. If Lakewood wrote into their charter unlimited contributions, which some home rule cities did. But if Lakewood was silent on this issue, failed to address it at all, this bill would actually impact them. So it depends on how those home rule charters are written.
You can't make it a matter of statewide concern?
It would be very hard.
Oh, okay.
Because of the way that the home rule charters are written.
Since Lakewood's in my area, do we have a list of home rule cities that might have put unlimited in?
I can get you a list of home rule cities. That's easy to find, but I don't have their individual charters.
Okay.
But for instance, like I know Fort Collins has a $75 limit on their town council races. Denver, you know, is like higher. It's like 500 or something like that, $1,000 maybe. Thornton, none. Right? I mean, each one is different. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. 2 of the people on the call are on our Legislative Action Committee Elections and Voting Group. That group has, I think, 7 people. And so they will look at the bill when it comes. Peggy Leach is part of that group. I will, if it's okay with you, I will ping her that she might want to share it with the group. Mostly
please just pass along my message. Well, for those of you on the Legislative Action Committee, you know, please pass along my message to the other members of the committee that we really hope that they can support the bill and come to committee and testify in support of the bill, because I do know that the word of the League of Women Voters means a lot to the assembly.
Well, thank you. That's wonderful to hear. Oh, one question. I have heard from at least one legislator that legislators don't really have time to read written testimony much, and so don't, and that if we want to have an impact, we need to show up by video or in person.
It is better, but it doesn't hurt to do, well, certainly it doesn't hurt to do both.
Right.
But if you can't be there, and some people just can't be there, and that's okay, provide that written testimony. We don't get it very often. I can tell you that I read it when I get it, but you know, we all do what we can do, right? So I would never discourage someone from providing written testimony if they simply cannot be there in person.
Okay,
Luckily, we're still allowing Zoom testimony. And so even if people can't come in, sign up to testify over Zoom. It's great.
yeah,
But
we,
I submit the written as well, just because I want it to be a matter of the record for
Mhm.
people to read. That's why I do it, but I still testify in person as well.
yeah, we have a member in Montezuma County, Gunnison, not necessarily in the elections group, but we have members who absolutely can only be on Zoom. And
Yeah, no,
so
it's a
we-
great
we-
initiative
we
and I'm
love that.
glad we continued it. So,
Yeah, so I will ping the elections group and Peggy Leach. And I can't, we operate committees and then committee of the whole, the way you do. And so it's the voting election group gets first pass at this. And I certainly haven't heard anything that rings alarm bells that would say, so I will pass that on. Greg and Jeff and Jennifer will probably pass that on to the elections group.
awesome. That's great. Thank you so much for your support. I got to get back to committee, but I'll just hang on for 1 second if anybody had any lingering questions.
I just wanted to tell you, I have this example of a really run Metro District newsletter that I'm forwarding to Maude. And I also sent it to Jeff, Christina, you should already have it. John has it. Neil, I couldn't get your email, but I was hoping that Maude, you could send that out to everyone. Just as an example, I'll send it to you as well, Representative.
Sounds good. Great.
Okay.
Thank
And
you
for-
so
I
much for your
really-
time.
Yes, and I really liked your testimony
you.
and how, what a good job you did of holding people accountable to their opinions in the committee meeting. So.
Thank you. Thank
yes,
you.
that's great.
Appreciate it. Take care,
Thanks.
everybody.
I put my
Appreciate you.
email in the chat if you want to grab
Okay,
it from there. Thank
okay.
you.
Uh-huh.
Perfect.
I really like,
Wow.
I listened to her. I was in that committee. Didn't you think, weren't you impressed with her, John? I just thought she was, and Jeff, you were there, weren't you?
Yeah, sure. I thought she was better than Tammy.
Oh, yeah, she was, oh, she's so well spoken. And then when she was holding people accountable to some of the Metro District industry, saying that this was going to cause ridiculous things to have
Yeah.
this, not allow the developers to have their own, to finance to buy their own bonds. They just couldn't hold up to her scrutiny. So.
Super.
Deal. Okay.
Christina and Fair, it would be great if you want to join the local government group of the Legislative Action Committee. I think Jeff would love to have company and help. We have on our YouTube channel, it's under advocacy training. So you go to YouTube, you go type in League of Women Voters of Colorado, and then below the League of Women Voters, all the way to the right, that you may have to scroll. There's a search icon.
Oh, let's
And
see.
it's called advocacy training. And I'll send you that. I'll send you but we have a 3-part training.
Okay.
They're each we tried to keep each to an hour, but the third one we warned people was going to be longer. The third one, they should go in order, please, but the third, you can speed them up. The third one is the nuts and bolts.
And I find this under what again?
So you go to, I'll send you the breadcrumbs.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. And Christina, you're on mute.
I sat through 1 and 2 live, so I just need to do 3.
Yeah, super, super, super.
Good.
Yeah, and then I'll also send you a link to the LAC members workbook, and on the 3rd page is do you actually want to join, or are you just thinking? Fair and Christina.
Me? Yes,
Yeah.
I do. I absolutely do.
Christina?
Because I do think
Okay,
the voice of the league is so important, so.
okay, super.
If
I
I'm
will
the
send
pushing
you,
person behind this, I better be.
yeah. I will also send you a link to the LAC members workbook, which has members and it has 3 tabs: members, issue area groups, and a link to the meetings of the meeting schedule. We meet every other Friday morning, 9 to 11. Can you make that?
Every other Friday morning,
9 to 11.
Next meeting,
okay,
the 24th.
starting with this
Next
Friday. or
meeting,
when?
next meeting is the 24th. Yes.
Okay,
Christine
the
is correct.
24th. Let me just look here. I think I should be fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm open on the 24th.
Okay. And so it's every other Friday. It just rolls through the.
Right, I
calendar.
have an eye exam on the 10th. And what time did you say it meets?
9 to 11.
Oh, okay, that won't interfere. Okay.
Okay. Super. Wonderful. Welcome. Will be good to have your energy and experience.
All right. And John, did you get signed up?
I
Yeah.
will.
John, you know what your local league is, correct?
Before the sun sets.
What? But you joined through your local league. Do you know what your local league is?
Yeah.
It would be Jeffco.
Oh, you'll be one of Christina's gang. Good. Yeah, so join through the Jeffco
Okay.
league page.
All right.
Wonderful. Thank you all.
All right. And I sent you all that newsletter. Be sure you read it and be sure you read Tammy's comments about what she went through with John. John guided her through it to divorce her metro district from it was a master slave situation. And she was able to terminate the IGA. And it's kind of a report on what's happened since then.
Oh, wow, I'll like to read that. I've never heard of anybody doing that.
Yeah, and it didn't cost them any money, whereas what is it? Was it up at Saratoga Falls, John, that a group actually spent $100,000 to do that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wasn't necessary, but it happens. But
Mhm.
but yeah, there's a clear path to open sky. You just need to get control of the board and then work it from there. But at any rate,
Where is that report? That sounds interesting.
Well, I sent you the newsletter. Read the letter down below written